Kupo Moogles, this is Schwantz27 here with yet another Coliseum 2 recap for the lower bracket semifinals round, and we had Umaro's Club. The best place to party and the only acceptable dance move is the dab. Umaro's flag set had the possibility of plus 40 strength with a Coliseum win. However, it also meant the auto berserk status for your team, so unless you found some ribbons or peace rings, it was a big risk for a big reward. 3 of the 4 runners in this round got the Coliseum reward, and the one that didn't ended up losing their match. With half of the characters not having a special command, physical and magical damage were leaned on heavily in this round, with the no free progression flag granting high tier items for our runners to use on their characters. With these settings in mind, how did our matches fare? The first match had Boo face off against Zenobian with Cyan and Rage Terra, which is actually perfect for this flag set. Knowing that the no free progression flag was on, Boo only went to the Imperial base to loot and not continuing on to the sealed gate cave for the high tier item, grabbing only one Atma weapon, whereas Zenobian went all the way through that check for yet another Atma weapon in a chest and Marvel shoes at the end. Access to peace rings and multiple relic shops meant that the Coliseum play was on the table for both runners. However, there were not any decent items for trade, so Boo decided to leave the Coliseum empty-handed, but Zenobian did grab a force armor since we did get some decent battle power weapons like Stunner, Wing Edge, and Doom Darts. The fully berserked crew from Zenobian was able to kill Umaro much faster than Boo's party with the increased strength stat to grab the 4th character, Shadow. Boo continued to Kefka at Narsh for Siren, while Zenobian headed to Mount Zozo to take on the Red Dragon for a Minerva drop and Strago with Vanilla lore. Boo soon followed there for his 5th character as Zenobian took his berserked party over to Fanatic's Tower, where you can only use the magic command unless you have the berserk status for a guaranteed Esper and a blue dragon to increase levels and learn even more spells. Boo went through Cyan's Dream, taking down Goddess with the level 4 Flare lore, and then ran into Inferno for 2 difficult boss fights, getting 3 Espers, including Fenrir for Calmness protection, whereas Zenobian got an Esper each from the Velt Cave and Ebbets Rock. Both runners then went to the Floating Continent to get 4 more bosses towards their skip, along with 2 Espers and Magitech Mog. Zenobian got his 7th character throw lock from Zozo Tower and Bismarck from South Figaro Cave, as Boo was getting his 6th character to go along with 8 Espers. After talking to the girl in the basement of Moblez, Boo got his Go Mode and the Kefka Tower skip at the same time after fighting 2 more bosses. Looking for his last Esper, Zenobian got one of the very few dead checks in the game at Tritok Cliff and an extra 8th character, Go-Go, at Yeti Cave, before also turning to Moblez for his last Esper. Even though Boo got his Go Mode first, his levels were in the low 30s, versus Zenobian's party was at the low 40s. Thus, Boo decided to take on a dragon for more levels, and that resulted in a less than 10-second difference between the runners to start the boss gauntlet. Unfortunately, Zenobian having 2 characters with Berserk against Rexol made it an extremely long fight, with being unable to target a boss with multiple parts, and especially in this case, with the Soul Savers just wasting time from physical attacks. This meant Boo was able to dispose of the Stooges and leader in the middle path, as well as taking a grind fight to have Strago learn Merton before Zenobian took down his first boss. In spite of the level advantage, the longer Rexol fight put Zenobian 1 minute behind Boo to start the final battle. Boo also had Exfer for instant death on Tier 1 and Tier 2 due to Magitech Mog, Siren on Tier 2's Magic, and Fenrir for Calmness on Tier 3. Zenobian used the Float spell in order to avoid a potential Quake death counter from Head on Tier 1. Boo took the lead on Tier 2, however, he accidentally cast Fenrir a Tier 2 soon, taking away that Calmness advantage later on. Zenobian's extra damage allowed him to catch up in spite of not having the tools to take care of parts easier. With access to more powerful non-elemental attacks like 2 Atma weapons, Zenobian pulled ahead of Boo, having to recover from a quarter death counter on Tier 2, plus taking longer to kill Girl. However, he lost Umaro to Calmness in the process, whereas Boo lost Cyan to Calmness about 20 seconds later. Zenobian's usage of Quick allowed him to do enough damage to bypass Fallen One, whereas Boo had to use an Elixir on Strago followed by a Pearl Wind to recover his party. Zenobian's bench player Go-Go had Throw, and he put out too much damage as his party ate an ultimate counter with only Shadow and Terror remaining. Boo, meanwhile, had his Kefka charge up for Goner, and he used Merton to deal a ton of damage, killing his bench player off in the process. Zenobian used Quick to leapfrog a Berserked Shadow's turn, casting a healing spell and life 2 on Cyan with the Atma weapon, but was forced to survive yet another ultimate counter when Shadow's turn was actually taken. His Kefka Goner then started after Boo recovered from his own Goner cast, and that allowed Zenobian to attack without worry since Kefka had very little HP at that point, allowing Zenobian to finish the fight first, 125-22 to 126-10, less than a minute difference. The other lower bracket semifinal match had Takamage versus Drulith, starting with the Perform in an Opera House quest as a gentleman's agreement, and after a 4-minute cutscene, we had Locke and Magitech Shadow to start, so there were a few free checks available, with a Minerva offering choice at the Norse Weapon Shop, a 6-battle Curse Shield, a Snow Muffler at Gal Manor, and Drulith went into the Phoenix Cave getting the Siren Esper along with the Torado Esper at the Zen Thief. Takamage did not get those Espers, instead opting to fight Chatternook at the Velt Cave for Realm. Both runners got a Valiant Knife and an Atma weapon to go along with the offering from the Norse Weapon Shop, as there were peace rings available in a different relic shop. The next spot for our runners was an Esper for Takamage at South Figaro Cave, with Drulith heading up to the World of Ruin Norse for Fixed Ice from the Storm Dragon and a pair of Espers from Tritok Cliff and Yeti Cave. Takamage took the multi-check Floating Continent and ran into trouble with the second boss Inferno, killing 2 party members and petrifying the third. However, Realm was able to push through with Jump, and Tools Celeste was the reward for the first spot, and an Esper at the second. Drulith finally got his 4th character in the Velt Cave with Realm, as Takamage was finishing up the Floating Continent for the Fenrir Esper. Getting Celeste, Takamage went into the Magitech factory for 2 quick Espers, while Drulith picked up Cyan from Esper Mountain to put him at an even 5 characters and 5 Espers each. Drulith got one of the only dead checks Force Armor at Doma Siege, while Takamage continued to the minecart ride, fighting a glitchy Stooges fight when Larry was revived, and a lengthy fight with Rexol for another Esper. Drulith headed into a different multi-part check, Cyan's Dream, getting 3 Espers in total, and Takamage grabbed his 6 character Cyan and hit the dead check at Doma Siege, but grabbed the 7th Esper from the Tzen Thief before heading into Owser's Mansion for an 8th Esper. But sadly, the auction house was not selling any Espers with the no free progression flag. Drulith, at 5 characters and 8 Espers, made the curious call to head up to the Floating Continent, but was rewarded with his final character and Esper with the first 2 checks for his Go mode and Kefka Tower skip. He decided to continue on with the Floating Continent instead of short-circuiting out after the second check for an additional Esper, and luckily the Fenrir Esper was the reward for his Calmness protection. Takamage got Terra from Mount Zozo as a 7th character, and then his Go mode at Welk, having KT skip and hand already, just 2 minutes behind Drulith. The first 3 bosses of the gauntlet were pretty easy, however. A French vanilla goddess at the Doom statue gave Drulith issues for the first time around. His heads-up play of equipping Cyan with the offering and Fixed Dice allowed his party to bypass the powerful Love Token counter, and he was the first to step up to the final boss. Takamage already had offering Valiant Knife on lock for this fight, so there was no reconfiguration necessary, but he was still about 2 minutes behind with Drulith starting tier 2 as Takamage was picking out his party. Access to Mute and Exfer along with Fenrir gave our runners great abilities to counter the different parts of the final Kefka climb. However, Takamage took a reset as there was a Quake counter from Head taking out 2 of his 4 party members, and that's what happens when you bring a Berserked party into the final boss. Being able to target the enemies and kill them in the right order of operations certainly would have prevented this. But when your characters are berserked, you can't choose who to target. Drulith powered through tier 3 as Takamage lost lock yet again to tier 1, deciding to continue onwards without his 4 times VK user. Drulith's lock fell over after Fallen One and started to charge for Goner as he picked that character back up with little HP and was able to defeat Kefka before getting annihilated with a time of 124.03. And now for the top plays of the round, with both runners in the Boo versus Zenobian match getting a stop proc to help out, with Boo getting it from the stunner weapon on Ultros 3, and Zenobian probably a more useful stop proc from the stunner weapon on Poltergeist. We've also got Boo doing some hashtag quick maths against his Goddess fight, using the level 4 Flare lore on Goddess to carry the potentially deadly fight in order to do non-elemental damage that also ignores magic defense. And finally, Zenobian's final Kefka fight made great use of the ATB tricks by using the quick spell to allow his casters to heal and ensure that the team was ready for potential counterattacks. And he did run into them with eating multiple ultimate casts before finally getting enough damage to beat down the Mad Clown. And for the fails of the lower bracket semifinals, we also have Zenobian's Terra, who is berserked, picking the absolute wrong rage, casting Flash Rain, which is an ice and water attack against Ultros 3, who absorbs that H2O element. Another Terra moment from that match came when Boo was attempting to heal Terra with a potion. However, he picked the Ghost Rage, which means that Terra inherited the undead property, and instead of getting 250 HP back from the potion, she keeled over and died from that 250 damage. Ouch. And finally is the Three Stooges fight from Taco Mage, as his Berserk team decided to kill Larry first, and then Curly brought him back into the fight with life 2, and a vanilla glitch made him not targetable in spite of being back in the battle. Thankfully, we had access to AoE attacks, and were able to eventually kill off the ghost of Larry before requiring a reset from a potential soft lock condition. The lower bracket finals between Zenobian and Drulith will feature Cyan's Katana for the lower bracket finals. A plus 10 strength, plus 5 stamina, and minus 5 magic stat adjustment to start is supplemented by an additional plus 20 strength bonus for a Coliseum victory. We'll get Cyan to start with his Sword Tech ability, and upon completing the Dome of Dreams set of checks, we'll get access to all 8 Sword Techs. Even though Sword Tech will be powerful, the Tools ability will not be featured in the random pool because, you know, Cyan hates technology. There's an increased XP multiplier of 4 instead of the normal 3. However, there's a big wrinkle in this flag set with the permadeath flag enabled and only having 3 Phoenix downs to start, which means that we'll only be able to raise our characters 3 times before they're permanently dead, as Phoenix downs will not be in chops, chests, healing buckets, or cutscenes will not bring our characters back, and there will be no access to life or life 2 in the seed, with the Phoenix Esper summon granting the life 3 spell instead of the life 1.5 or so as it is. Speaking of Espers, they will have the vanilla spells and bonuses, as well as our enemies will also be in their vanilla locations with no element scaling to go back to the original FF6 game scripts. There's also no free progression enabled, so checks without fights will be high tier item rewards. I'm expecting runners to be extra cautious with their fights and or gain more levels than usual so as to not run into the chance of having a character die during fights, with the precious resource of Phoenix Downs being so limited and lots of runners heading to Cyan's Dream as early as possible in their seeds to take advantage of all 8 Sword Techs. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. I've been the Schwantz27. Until next time.